Thanks, everyone. We're going to have a little audience participation to start off, because you guys look like you're a little low on energy right now. I've had the stomach flu for 4 days, so I think I need a round of applause because I survived. I'm a survivor. Yeah. It was like the once every 30-year epic kind of thing where you're kneeling to the porcelain god, wanting someone to take your life. But I'm here. I thought I'd start with a song, so I'm going to need everyone to clap with me here. So let's see, it's cool. Keep it steady. Walking around the room singing stormy weather by 67 Mount Pleasant Street. It's the same room, but everything's different. You can find the dream, but not the sleep. Things ain't cooking in my kitchen. Strange affliction wash over me. Julius Caesar and the Roman Empire couldn't conquer the blue sky. Good job. Second verse. Sing along if you know it. And there's a small boat made of china. It's going nowhere on the mantelpiece. And do I lie like a lounge room lizard? Or do I sing like a bird released? Everywhere you go, you always take the weather with you. Everywhere you go, you always take the weather. Everywhere you go, you always take the weather with you. Everywhere you go, you always take the weather. Take the weather with you. Thank you. Take the weather with you, climate change. I thought it made a nice connection. I'm Mike Tittel. This is the Emojicon designed by my daughter. This is what comes up on her phone when I call her, apparently. And I like this part, because apparently I bring no joy to her life. She's 11. It's my Twitter handle. Twitter's a mess. I can't figure it out. I can't find stuff on there. But I put this up because it seems like everyone at Creative Mornings does that. Thanks for Powerhouse having us. This is an awesome space. I love coming and seeing shows here. Love the work. My website, Michael Tittel, and then I work at a company called Gyro. Yes, it's just like the sandwich. It's pronounced gyro. Jeremy, thanks for having me. Top of the creative morning to everybody. So today we're going to talk about creative climate change. That's how we connected climate to today's theme. So this isn't about global warming. It's not about sustainability. It's about being in creative environments and how you can have great creative cultures no matter where you work. If you're working alone, if you work in teams. I assume most everyone is in the creative industries of some sort. Raise your hand if you're creative. Are we all creative? I actually believe everybody is creative. I think some of us just kind of grow up nurturing that creativity and some of us don't. So This is like a blessed church, a union of creative people. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Can you guys see the screen okay? Fairly? It's hard to see. Then I'll describe what's on the screen. I have some pictures to show. This is an actual archive photo of me as a young man taking photos with a film camera. I started my professional career as a photographer. I never knew I was a creative person. I think my generation, when we grew up, we were just told to go get a profession. I kind of dabbled in, oh, that's cool, that helps. I dabbled in creative things all my life, but no one ever really told me I was creative. I don't think that was in the lexicon back then, back in the dark ages. So I did photography for a while, and this is actually going to lead up to kind of my creative agency experience. But I wanted to show you some of the things I've been doing recently in photography. I got out of professional photography because quite frankly, I wasn't good enough to kind of make it a creative pursuit. I couldn't fulfill my creative needs with it. I was doing a lot of commercial work, and frankly, I just don't think I was that good at it. But what I do like doing is I started doing street photography about 3 years, and I've been doing street photography that kind of involves these architected scenes that almost look like I casted them, but they're actually kind of real moments that occur in life, and I'm there and I capture them very quickly. They seem to be about loneliness, people being alone, and also being in groups. So this is one, this is a troop of Boy Scouts. This was a food truck in Austin, Texas, when I was down there at South by Southwest. But this young girl, I guess they don't have employment laws in Texas because I think she was like 10 years old working at a food truck. But took this photograph of her. And then this one here. So a theme in my life has been kind of this individual pursuit of creativity married with being in situations where I'm on teams or groups. And I find that very interesting. I also find the theme of we're all kind of alone on planet Earth. However, we're social people and we surround ourselves with love and people and teams and collaboration. So I find those themes very interesting. And I'm old enough now to be able to somewhat reflect upon my life and see how themes in my life have connected to my career. This is a picture, this is another actual, real, archival image of Michael Bruce Tittel, age 9. Greg Martini, you'll love this one. This is me playing my holiday Swing Star Rogers kit, which is now probably worth $4,000. I bought it at a garage sale for $200. My dad actually bought me this drum kit. That's one of the things of kind of creative cultures is tools, providing people with the right tools. And my parents were always great with providing me whatever creative tool I needed. I don't feel I was spoiled. I feel I was given like very specific things that I valued in my life. So next week, my 11-year-old that did the Emoji Con, she is getting an Adobe Illustrator class. How cool is that? What a great dad I am. Getting her into advertising. I should be put into prison for that. Another archival photo, I did not have the coolest hair, but I definitely had the baddest ass eyebrows. So drums, I learned drums and I pursued that as a solitary endeavor. I started doing that when I was tiny and I got really good at it. And then I was suddenly realized, oh shit, like if you know how to play drums, like you can't really go around doing drum solos, you have to get into a band. So I was kind of thrust into this intense dynamic of bands. And how many of you have been in a musical group of some sort in your life? Okay, I'm going to, rough calculation, 30% of the audience. So 30% of the audience, I hope you agree with me, there is almost nothing better than being in a band. Being in a collaborative group where you're making something original, Everyone's contributing, and you kind of create this thing that's better than the sum of the parts. Bands are great. I did bands for a long time. This was about as famous as I got. My girlfriend at the time convinced me that I should have blonde hair because a guy named Kurt Cobain was getting very famous. But again, it kind of weird with the eyebrows, but a signature thing. This was a band called the Loud Family. This is Scott Miller. He was an idol of mine growing up, and I got the privilege to play with him. He died 2 years ago, and it was a great loss, but in my opinion, the best American songwriter of all time, and I got to play with this guy. So I did this for a while. I met all kinds of famous people when I was in that band, and it was super great. It was also the realization that I could not survive on $20 per diem a day, because even like Slim Jims, I mean, the price of a Slim Jim, you buy like 5 of those to make kind of like a cylinder about that big, which is enough to sustain you for a day, and a Mountain Dew and things like that. It's tough. So tough life. I still do music. I'm still in a band. I'm in a couple bands. I play drums. This is my band, which you can tell because I'm the one in front. And everyone else is kind of slightly smaller, even though I'm probably the shortest one in the band. But through photography, you can kind of go like this. But this band is called New Sincerity Works, and it's me, it's my songs. I play guitar. I'm not a good guitar player, but another theme in my creative life is as long as you surround yourself with people that are more talented than you, you're gold. So individual creative endeavor, being in bands, all this kind of stuff comes together. I've got this mantra, which is like, be in the band. Unless you're like on an island doing creative things, make a band. Get the vibe together that you can be with people, you can create really cool stuff, and you can feel like rock stars. And that's a theme for me. I know how it feels, and that's what I want. Like, I don't want to go to work and punch a clock. I punched a clock for a long time, and it wasn't so inspiring. So being the band is kind of this theme. So setting up some themes here. I'm going to get to the point. Trust me. Surround yourself with talented people. So I went to this 11-year-old, that's my daughter, and I said, hey, I've got this creative presentation. I need some illustrations because I can't draw. And so she made the illustrations for this. So I asked her, I said, I want an illustration that's like about art and about business. So this is what she rendered. Don't criticize me for it. Please don't make fun of her, because that'll make me sad. But we're in this weird industry, which is like we pour our hearts out and our souls and we make stuff. And it's all in the pursuit, mostly, of capitalism. And it's a weird, what do I want? What's this? What is that? Teeter-totter. That's what I was trying. It's like a teeter-totter, right? And it's hard. It's like, it's a business, but it's art, and how does it all work? So this has been a struggle for me personally. Like, how do I sell out and try to make some money, have a family, live in Cincinnati, Ohio? That's a whole nother topic. We won't go there today. Someone should do a topic on that, how to live in Cincinnati, Ohio, their whole life. But what kind of helped me wrestle with this teeter-totter device that we've created together is this simple thing. And there's a lot of this on the internet. The internet's funny because you can find everything and you can find all kinds of brilliant stuff. I think there was actually a Creative Morning on this topic that I saw. But we all have a purpose on earth. If you believe in earth, that is. And I suppose there's a purpose in heaven as well if you believe in heaven. But we're just talking about earth for now. And we all have a why. So a couple years ago, when I was at Gyro, I still am at Gyro, of course, we do this thing called the Academy. And the Academy is where people from all our 16 offices go off and they get together and we do all kinds of crazy facilitation, brainwashing things where we learn how to be more creative and work together, and it's actually really, really, really powerful. And I'm somewhat skeptical because I've done a lot of these kind of corporate things before, and it was kind of game-changing for me. And this is 3 or 4 years ago I did this. So I realized my personal why is kind of bringing people together and getting them to work really well together and helping people find out who they are and what they can bring to the table. And that's kind of been my thread my whole life. When I was in these bands, I was always the kind of the democratic comedian that told the lead guy he could do it. I was always the guy telling the bass player, you know, bass players don't suck, man. You're the bottom end. You can hold this down. Like, you're the game-changing component. So, like, that's kind of just in me. And once I realized that, it was kind of liberating, because then I could take that personal why into my work experience, and I can make work really meaningful for me. Beyond just, I'm a creative guy and I like to make really cool stuff and I like to be really creative and I like to see how much better my creative can be every year. This kind of gave me this personal sense of what I can do. So one day I was driving to work at a previous agency, and this is kind of how I felt. Very bleak, very gray, very depressed. And I realized, like, I was driving to work and I didn't really love it. And I dreaded it. And I was stressed out, and I had like these back problems for years, like these muscle spasms that would happen. And I actually attribute that physical pain that I was going through with how miserable I was at this job. So I remember being in my car driving to work one day, and I remember, like, I never talk out loud. I talk out loud to myself a lot now, but I didn't back then. And at that time, I actually remember, like, saying out loud in my car, God, one day I'm gonna fucking drive to work and I'm gonna love where I work. I'm going to love driving to work. And now we may wave the magic wand, the fairy dust comes down, bling. Somehow I ended up at Gyro one day. This is me, this is at Keeneland, we took a bunch of people down there last year. I ended up at this company called Gyro through a series of flukes. Stay standing, that's what I say to everyone, just stay standing, man. If you just stay at a place long enough, eventually they will put you in charge. You will get lucky. But I got really, really lucky, and I came into this company and I got to help transform the company and transform the culture. You can't see, but this is me, and this is Adriana Sutherland. Many of you know Adriana. I got so lucky being paired up with Adriana Sutherland. She's my partner at Gyro. She runs the office. She's my boss. But we really have like a 50-50 partnership going. She's super brilliant, super smart. And remember the business art technical diagram I showed you guys earlier? Business art. The cool thing about her, though, is her father was a brilliant creative director, and she is like a brilliant creative person, super intuitive. But she runs a mean business, and for that I'm thankful, because I'm dyslexic. I can't keep track of my checkbook, and I'm a disaster with any kind of numbers or organization. So she keeps it all straight. When we got to Gyro, we brought kind of 3 tenets in: big words, inspiration, education, and celebration. And we basically retooled the culture. So I'm going to go through 7 kind of key things, high level, that we did. And this is going to be a little interactive here. before I get to the 7, a couple things. Culture for me was not, I want to do better creative work, so I have to build a great creative culture. I mean, that was kind of the end game, but I had to personalize this more to make it tangible. To me, what a great creative culture, the goal was I want to work at a place where creative people can't bitch. It might be an impossibility, but I wanted to create a place where there was no excuse for anyone to not be able to do exactly what they want and do great work. Because, man, creative people, and I can say this because I'm one, we can bitch about everything. There is never going to be the right client. There is never going to be the right situation. There's never the right budget. There's never, ever, ever time. And when we are given enough time, I would argue we do our worst work. So I wanted to make a place that had no excuses. So huge topic, but in any agency you kind of have your talent, your clients, and your culture, and all this stuff has to work together. So I'm kind of diving into this big, huge topic, but I just put this up just to acknowledge the fact that I know there's a million reasons why you can't do good work, and I know there's a million reasons why great agencies are great. We're just going to talk about a little slice. We're going to talk about creative, safe spaces. Creative, safe space. Man, you really can't see this. This is a beautiful photograph of an embryo, a fetus in a womb. And I put this up just to say, I came into this cultural experiment trying to think, like, what's the ultimate safe space for a creative to work in? Arguably, maybe it's the womb, but that's way too weird and abstract. And I'm not sure if any of us really do anything creative there unless putting a little digit in our mouth over and over again is creative. Maybe it is if you put that in a museum and put a little plaque and sell tickets. But I kind of went back to school. I went back to art school. Man, that's when I felt safe. I felt amazing. I also went back to this Gyro Academy that I'm talking about, where you had all these people coming in for a week into this really cool place in Sweden. It was this kind of wooden barn. And man, the awesome energy and creativity that I experienced that one week in Sweden convinced me that, like, if I could have taken those people and put them anywhere in the world, I was convinced I could make the best award-winning agency in the world. And that feeling that I had in me of, like, just being able to share and do great ideation and come up with ideas and not have the ridicule and the criticisms, that convinced me that culture was everything. So, culture. Scooters and dogs. This is a guy on a scooter. This is a shot of Gyro. Scooters and dogs are important. That's the stuff that everyone kind of goes to when they think of great cultures. They think of spaces, great spaces like this. Exposed brick, natural environments, all that stuff is super important, and I don't want to diminish it. But I would argue you can have great culture in a cube farm. I would argue you could have great culture in a prison. I'm going to actually say that. So for me, culture comes down to, like, this moment of truth. This is an actual gyro designer. This is an archival image, digital photograph of an actual gyro designer doing work on a Macintosh Apple computer system. How many of you do that for a living? This is the moment of truth. The scooters, the dogs, the perks, the money, all that stuff, it's all good. But man, when it comes down to it, it's like I like to say at Gyro, it comes down to the poor bastard that has to sit in front of the computer and do the work. And how do they feel about doing the work? How do they feel about their personal expression? How can they make great work happen? and benefit the business. So I came up with I tried to distill down really simply to what this could be. So the 7 things that I think every human should have going on if every human were working in a creative field. This is where you're going to participate with me. The first one is you have to feel like you can share. You have to feel like you can take the ball, Frank. Sharing is critical. Most important sharing comes from the peers at the agency, the people working next to each other. You have to create a culture where people intuitively and habitually share. With Gyro, it took a long time to get that culture to start sharing things. Previous culture was not used to sharing things. We didn't even put stuff up on the walls previously. So sharing is important. I'm going to give you quick examples, but you should not do the same things because your companies are different. Your work situations are different. You have to come up with your own ways to force sharing. And I say force, because sometimes you have to force people to share stuff. We put a crit wall right in the middle of the agency, and for a long time, I just made people put their stuff up, work in progress, and create an environment where people had to comment on things. You just got to force stuff. So you got to feel like you can share. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. The worst thing at an agency in the sharing category is, you touch my idea, I'm going to kill you. You got to break that down immediately. You got to make sure that people understand that there are occasionally great ideas and they come out immediately, but by and large, most ideas are ideas that get built upon and built upon and built upon and built upon, and then they become great. And you have to have that culture where people are okay with bringing their little babies in the room and then having those babies destroyed and built up to be grown adults. Horrible analogy. Never destroy babies. All right. Audience participation on sharing. How are you guys doing? Green is good. Yellow is nyeh. And red is we got problems, Houston. How are we doing on sharing ideas? Yellows and greens. Couple dangers. Yellows and greens, fair. Be fair, people, come on. All right, yellows and greens, that's good. So as we go through, if you want, this is just a suggestion, you can write on these sheets of paper like the little tenet. So that was sharing, so write down which one your sharing was, and then you can leave with a little action plan. All right, the next one is feel protected. You need to feel like a cupcake surrounded by a glass dome that no one can get to. This gets back to safe. Protection is important. You got to feel like if you're going to put yourself out there in all your weird, wonderful wackiness, because we're all weird, wonderful, and wacky, and stupid, and brilliant, we're all the same, you got to feel like you can put yourself out there and not be crushed. At Gyro, what really helped was we developed what's called a troika. And the troika is a account planner, a business lead, and a creative. And the troika is involved in everything. So, you go back to that teeter-totter, the art and business thing, that's always difficult to manage. But the troika protects the interest of the work. So the creative guy is trying to make sure that the creative is award-winning, that it's emotional, that the creative team's proud of it. The account planner is recognizing kind of the audience, who we're actually talking to, so they're upholding that. And then the business lead is upholding the client's business. And when everyone has an equal say in that, it makes protecting the work and protecting the people a lot easier. Put some skin in the game. At Gyro, we make creative evaluation part of everybody's review. We have a monthly award show across the whole network, every office has to submit one brilliant creative idea. And let me tell you, man, when our office doesn't win these monthly creative awards, I get in trouble and Adriana gets in trouble. So that sense of protection is super important. In other words, when you walk in with your protection t-shirt, you got to feel like you got people. You got people watching your back, that everyone's kind of covering for each other. So how are we doing on protection? Let me see your colors on. Feeling protected, like you can express yourself. Greens and yellows, a couple reds. All right, write those down. Your reds are going to be your critical action plan coming out of this. Feel rewarded. Rewards are important. There's obvious rewards. There's buying drinks for people. I will say one of the best rewards you can ever give anyone is a hug. I believe that. You got to be careful. Got to be careful with that. But if you do if you kind of do that, and take a picture when you do it, get it on camera. But a hug is good. But rewards are important. I try to, as a creative leader, not do too much public proclamation. Creatives are a weird, finicky bunch. You pull one person out, and it's like a house of cards, man. Everyone, Tittel didn't give me a hug. You got to be careful, but rewards are important. But I will give you one example. One of the best rewards I ever gave a creative team was last year we did a creative offsite. I made these books. I was feeling like I wasn't doing any good work, and people forgot that I could actually do the work because I rant and rave all the time. Creative leaders in the room will remember that. You'll relate to that. So I sat down and I wrote this book and I designed it. And it was a workbook for my creative team so that they could track, plot, and work on growing their creative power. So I made this book. I had a little offsite. These are just some of the images of the book. I won't go into a lot of details. But the feedback I got from this book was I had just given them the biggest raise of their lifetime or something. And the appreciation that they showed me on that kind of proved to me that sometimes a gift is just a reward is giving yourself to your team or to the people you work with. So on reward, how are you guys doing on reward? Do you reward your creative employees well in the right ways? Do you feel rewarded as an employee? How are we doing on that? Show me your colors, Cincinnati. Interesting data point. A lot more yellows and reds on that one. Don't forget that. Let's write that down. All right, breezing through, trying to wrap this up. Jeremy, don't panic. All right. This one's a big one. Feel like you were growing. When I took over the department a couple years ago, I had an epiphany as a creative individual. I kind of went in how do I make the work better? How do I make sure this is the best work we could possibly be doing? And I couldn't get my head around beating up the work endlessly. So I said, how do I get at creative people to get them to do better work? Well, I went back to that school, the embryo slide that I showed, and I had a theory that was if my creative team grew every year individually as creative artists, if they would just look back over the year and say, damn, did I do that? If they would just say that, I was like, wow. I know if my creative work got 20% better every year, I'd be winning more awards. I'd be doing better work. I'd be happy. I'd be a freaking rock star. So I kind of built the growth model around individual growth. And I just hammered that home. So I did all kinds of little cultural tactics about growing, one of which was that book that I just showed you. But But for me, that's like the biggest data point for my creative team. In fact, I actually wrote, my job title is Executive Creative Director. Besides all the other stuff that I have to do, my real personal mission was I want to be a creative leader that gets the creative team to grow every year as individuals. And as long as they're happy, I'm happy. One of the coolest things I did, and again, these are like simple, dumb things, and they might not work for you, but you'll think of your own brilliant things. One of the things I did was when I first got there, I put out a creative survey to everybody. It was like a 3-page document with just a bunch of weird questions. And I was like, what do you do at home for to exercise your creative brain? Like, what's your favorite thing outside of the office you've ever created? And I just did this survey, and then I met with all the people, and it was mind-blowing to me. You think of these people as, this person's a copywriter, this person's a designer, this person does video. But when you read this survey, it was like, woo, like these people are like super creative and they have all these interesting things. Like I found out people like, were like sign painters and, did calligraphy and, copywriter that made documentary films, on and on and on and on. I then took that survey and I tried to connect that to their personal growth path at the agency. So you'd like to do calligraphy? Great. Do calligraphy. At the end of the year, I want you to have a major calligraphy project connected to this business, connected to a client that wins an award. Just some examples. Feel like yourself. Here's a duck saying, I can finally be a bird with an office job. I think that's really important. Gets back to that survey that I just told you. Creatives have to feel like themselves. You have to feel like you're bringing your personality to the game, and you have to foster that in a creative culture. So anything you can do to make sure individuals are doing the crazy, quirky things that they love to do, you need to foster that and do that. So let's see, how are we doing on that? Do you guys feel like you're yourself at your jobs? Do you partition your life? Green. Mostly greens on that. Steve, you're green on that. That's good. That's good. And I realized we didn't do, while you got your papers out, do you guys feel like you grow every year creatively? Forgot to do that. Creative growth every year. You guys are saying, damn, I did that? Super. I think that's a real important one. So feel like yourself. Your t-shirt should say nobody does blank better. You got to figure out your blank. Another one that I like is don't look now, but I kick ass. You should feel like that. Cooper Black is awesome on a t-shirt, by the way. Reminds me of Velveteen. You got to feel inspired. Inspiration, we throw that word around a lot. This is a rose with a face on it. And this person is so inspired by it that she's now going to paint a lily pad with a face. So inspiration is important because it's like creative people are like sponges, energy drains, and they're constantly needing stuff. The only thing I'll say about inspiration is like inspiration can come from leadership, but really when it works in a creative culture is when the inspiration comes from the people doing the work. So whatever you can do to make that happen. At Gyro, we do a thing every month, Inspiration Day, where we take the day off, we have a budget, different teams put it on. It's art, culture, kind of anything of interest to get the agency inspired. It's wacky, zany stuff, it's super serious stuff. But that one day a month really does help. And it helps socially, it helps kind of like loosen the muscles up, but it is also inspiring, and it's great to see your teammates and collaborators in new light and to hear sides of their lives, sides of what they have to offer that you didn't know about. So that's very cool. Because what you don't want to do is have this on a t-shirt. I went to the office and all I got was this crummy t-shirt and a paycheck. Don't wear that t-shirt ever. And then I think finally, you got to feel challenged. You know, you got to have competition. This is something I kind of missed out on early on in this transformation. You have to push people. You can build great cultures, and you can have safe creative spaces, and you can do all this inspiration, and you can have people sharing, and you can do good work. But the creative landscape, the business landscape, it transforms every year. So it's like, it's a roller coaster. You fix one thing, something else breaks. You do this for 6 months, things change, people forget, work happens. So it's like this roller coaster. So this constant creative pressure is what I call it, has to be there. I have more to say to that in a minute. But on the challenge part, you either rock it or you don't. Like, leadership can do all this stuff. We can put all this stuff into place. We can have great spaces. We can all ride scooters. We can bring dogs to work. But at the end of the day, you're either really good or you're not. And that's in you, and that's in me, and that's our responsibility. So those 7 kind of like cultural pillars that I just went through, those are like the big themes that help transform Gyro's culture. So 1-800, how's my driving? This is me I'm talking about, my driving. This was the other day, snowstorm. How did we do? Well, that roller coaster that I'm talking about, my realization is that, man, that roller coaster is always happening, and those 7 pillars I just ran through, those things ebb and flow, and they change. And the 2 things that I have come to find are super, super critical once you have everything in place is the pressure, the challenge part of that, and the inspiration. Those are 2 things that especially leadership has to drive and has to impact. So let's say you have your action plan together here. Let's say you have some broad ideas of maybe what you can do in your environments to make that creative climate change happen. Here's kind of a quick list of mandates. This is what has to happen in order for all this stuff to work. First of all, no excuses. You got to do it. You can't have excuses. You have to find the champions. So depending on how the culture is now versus how you want to transform it, you might have people in there that are assholes. You might have people in there that like don't want to succeed, that don't want to change, that want to do things the old way. So you got to find your 1 or 2 champions. I was really lucky. I mean, I had Adriana. She had me. She's lucky too. But you know, I had like 1 or 2 people just on my team that like they would just go to bat for me. And those champions, like, that's what made it work. The a-holes, I believe in giving everyone a chance. You might think differently. You might change that to like fire the assholes or make them leave or whatever. I actually believe like everyone's good, and if you get this far in the business, far enough that you're sitting at a desk doing creative stuff for money, like you're probably pretty good. So bring them along with you and try to transform them. Walk the walk. Like words don't matter. Speeches don't matter. Standing up telling people what they should do, it doesn't matter. You have to live it, and you have to like walk in every day, and you have to believe in this stuff, and you have to do it. Even if it feels weird and stupid and like it's a waste of time, some of the stuff works, sometimes it doesn't. Just bag the stuff that doesn't work, change course, try some new stuff. And then these 3 are really important for people that are actually doing the work. Make yourself happy. It's not your company's job. It's not management's job. They can do a lot, but at the end of the day, it's really your job to make yourself happy. It's not my job. If you all work for me, which you don't. So it's definitely not my job to make any of you happy. Energy and hustle. That's huge, man. Like, walk into work with the hustle, with the energy. That's That's what works. That's what drives change. That's what drives good work. And that's in you. And that's for your own sake. I don't say that like some corporate kind of mandate, like we need more energy. I'm just talking about creative people, and you probably all do hustle because you're creative. But you know what the deal is. It's running into work, it's getting stuff done, it's trying stuff, it's being efficient, it's having the energy. That's incredibly important. And then lastly, Adriana has a saying at Gyro, which is like, don't forget we all got into the creative arts, into advertising, because we wanted to make some cool shit. Like sometimes I forget that. It's, you know, with deadlines and clients that are not creative and clients that, you know, don't get it, it's hard to remember sometimes that like you've been paid, you've been hired to be creative. So be creative. Like don't do boring stuff. Be creative. Champions. Be a champion. Be a champion for each other. Be a champion for your teammates. Just doing that. And put metrics to this stuff. Like say once a week, I'm going to go hug some person. I'm going to tell them they did a great job. I'm going to promote them internally. I'm going to walk their work around. Blah, 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 blah. Whatever it is, like be a champion. Because at the end of the day, you either really, really rock it or you don't. So, I leave you with one last thing. I started with a song. Everywhere you go, you always take the weather with you. If you live in Cincinnati, you live in San Francisco, New Mexico, Cuba. We all have weather. We all have climates. We deal. But I very much believe that no matter where you are, from the cubicle to a great building like this, you can change the creative climate, you can change the culture, and you can make it that place where when you drive to work, when you ride your bike to work, when you walk to work every day, you can't wait to get there because you're going to grow, you're going to rock it, you're going to kick ass, and you're going to do the best work of your lives. Thank you. Any questions?
Like 3-4 questions. I know we're running a little bit late, so we'll take some. Don't forget there's some MailChimp site behind you. Come on, nice.
Oh yeah, we got prizes for any good questions. Greg Martini.
Any reason you chose a song by a group drummer for himself?
No.
Thanks.
That's a horrible question, Greg. This is not a safe creative space. But you win the MailChimp sticker, the monkey stickers, so come get your prize. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, two quick questions. One, can we get the workbook at some point, or is that just your team?
It was just for my team, and I just did a limited run, but I actually have contemplated doing something with that. Yeah, thank you.
And second, work happens. That was a quick thing that you said in talking about staying creative, staying engaged, all that stuff. How do you find, what's a good way to combat work happens? Because we all know we have to fill out our timesheets and meet certain deadlines and goals and stuff like that, but what's a good way to combat that?
The best way to combat work happens, because we have work, and then we have work we love, is learn the 80-20 rule of life and just deal with it. 80% of everything is meh. 20% is sweet. So get really good and efficient and do the 80% professionally better than anyone else in the world can do it. Nail it, get it out the door, and then live for the 20%. And the 20%, no secret to any of you, the 20% happens usually after hours and on weekends. But that's the stuff that we remember. 2 years from now, you remember the 20%, you'll never remember the 80%. Good question. You get the MailChimp hat, which will look awesome on you. Any other questions?
So when you're a company that's trying to transform your culture, how do you handle resistance with those people that are stuck in their ways and think it's all kind of gimmicky.
Yeah.
And is it a big change or is it subtle changes?
Shock and awe. I swear, you have to do it that way. Now, it depends if they're management or not, because that's a whole other topic. I'm not going to go there. Management. That's like a minefield. But what I will say is like, I made what's called a momentum calendar. Adriana and I made this momentum calendar, and every month we had all kinds of new activities we were doing. And it was like process change, it was everything. And we like shock and awed that agency. And we change and we change and we change. And like I said, some of it doesn't work, some of it's goofy, some of it people criticize it. But you're creating the safe space. So you get people to tell you, why does it suck? Why did that not work? And you do it in an open, collaborative, kind of facilitated way, and you bring people along and you listen to them. And you take their 20% and you discard their 80% and you make the change. But that momentum calendar, it's like you're walking through the momentum calendar and your head's going like this and you can't even keep it straight. And it's so much, and some of it's so ludicrous, but what happens is like after a year of that, everyone, not everyone, 80% is like, holy moly, look what we did, and this is way better than what we had. It's not perfect. No place is perfect. It's 80% perfect.
I have a question. You mentioned that you do creative evaluations at Gyro.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, how do you do about those? Is it like you rank yourself and then you rank them, or is it questions?
Yeah, it's a list of things, and it's all kinds of inputs. It's did your account win any Creative Excellence Awards? We have the monthly Creative Award at Gyro. It's an internal thing. How many of those did we win? We do peer-to-peer kind of feedback reviews. So account people evaluate creative people, and creative people get to evaluate account people. So it's this, back to that teeter-totter thing, it's like all these different inputs so that you have kind of this well-rounded sense of climate. So that's what we do. So it's a lot of different metrics. But when everyone's on the hook for creative excellence, it culturally makes it a different experience.
Do you have maybe two best tips for transforming assholes? Or like an approach to that? That can be such a feel insurmountable.
Yeah, it's I believe you got to make everybody shine. I believe that, and I believe that if you have someone that is set in old ways, one example would be, and this has worked for me, is elevate that person in a way that brings their positive benefits to life and lets them feel the power of getting others to shine. Like that alone, because I have, as you surely do, I have many stories as well. But empowering people in new ways is a wonderful way to transform them. There are occasions where there's nothing you can do, and sometimes people need to move on and do other things. But the power of making others shine, I think, is a thing that you can actually take that and give to somebody and have them feel the power of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's
You talk about competition, right? So do you guys provoke that, or do you help the employees just create their own competition for each other?
Yeah, good question. I think my awareness over 4 or 5 years of this is that has to kind of come from the management. Creatively, if we have different teams on things, teams will be competitive. People get competitive. You see a designer next to you doing something cool, you want to do it. I mean, there's always that. But I think putting that pressure, and it's a delicate balance, but that the pressure of your work isn't good enough, it's not good enough, that has to be in the culture. The work can almost always be better. And it's an art to do that in a way that feels safe and supportive and that people can grow. So it's like, have this expression a friend of mine came up with early on to describe me at points in my career, which was like, you're a damn feedback monster. And don't be a gruesome feedback monster, but give feedback in a way that, puts kind of the goal out front, dangles the carrot, and gives creative people the ability to think, oh yeah, I can reach the goal, I can do it, I know I have it in me. I'm 80% there, I got to get to the 20%. But the competitive stuff, I think, has to come more from leadership. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thank you very much.